but already making big strides. So I'm super excited about this. What I want to do, y'all, these leadership discussions go by really fast. And Will, we're so glad you're here as well, friend. These leadership discussions go by really quickly. So I wanted to, real fast before we jump into today's presentation and our amazing speaker, I just wanted to say, welcome y'all. We haven't had an event in just a little while, doing a few things, but we were like, we're coming back. And today we are talking about how to drive high quality products for your organization. But before I dive into our speaker, I want to say thank you so much to Provar for allowing us to spend the time and energy to provide these continuous learning opportunities. If you want to learn more about Provar, we've been making Salesforce testing easy for over nearly a decade. But we also have University of Provar, y'all, and it's a great free resource for you to continue to learn more, not just about Provar and Salesforce test automation, but we have a wealth of other free courses for you to check out as well. Hello, Eric. I love this. Yes, I had to shout out my Eric. So definitely we'll drop that in the chat below, but check out University of Provar. It's free. It's awesome. I'm a huge fan. But without further ado, I want to introduce our speaker, y'all. This is someone I think the world of. Lexie, she is incredible. She's a senior engineering manager of quality at Greenlight Financial Technology. She's also holds 7+ years of experience, previously leading automation and teams at MailChimp, including core areas in mobile automation, API testing, and Salesforce integrations. And she holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in Sociology from Georgia State University. She's a global public speaker, and she loves to invest in others through advocacy and mentoring. And correct me if I'm wrong, Lexie, but I feel like that has had a huge impact also in how you as a leader drive quality products for your.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
How did I do on the introduction?
That was beautiful.
Oh,
I
thank you.
had a whole intro slide and now I don't even have to do it.
You're so welcome. I love this. So we're going to talk a little bit as Lexie dives in. We're going to talk just a little bit at the highlights here, y'all. She's going to share some tangible skills for you to bring back to your teams. If you have any questions, drop them in the chat and we will answer them in the order that are received for our Q&A and announce the winner of a little bit of swag from Provar. Lexie, the floor is yours, queen.
Lovely. I hate this question, but can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Okay, cool. Great. Tristan already introduced me. So the only thing I'm going to add is my cat is currently sitting in the window, but she is notorious for making an appearance. So you will very likely see her moving around in here. Her name is Bella, and hopefully my dog keeps her shit together and she is over here napping currently. So we'll move on. So we're going to talk about how to drive high quality products. And I think there are a couple of really important things to consider when you think about what it means to deliver a high quality product and what it means to be a quality advocate, not just for the business, but really for the customers that you're building for. Quality is the last place that we get to be intentional and thoughtful about our users, the last touch before production that we get to ensure a delightful experience for them. And I believe in testing like a user and advocating for our users through testing, two philosophies that I have adopted from some really phenomenal leaders in my career. And so as a leader of a department, what I choose to focus on first is how I show up, the expectations that I have for my team and how I help them understand and meet those expectations. My expectations are pretty simple. At any company, I want my team to be an active participant on their product or development team, push for the resources and information they need, document to give any stakeholder or executive leadership visibility into our testing coverage, and to think about more than just testing. Think about risk and downstream impact and anything else that the feature that they are working on may touch or interact with. I work really hard to be a leader that coaches and advises my team on how to advocate for themselves, for our users, and for high quality products. And as much as I want this for them, I also understand that sometimes my title holds weight in conversations. So I also want my team to understand how and when to leverage that. And I encourage anyone that reports directly to me or falls within my organization to take advantage of that. And I encourage you guys as leaders to think about your leadership style and what that looks like as you support your team. But today, we're going to talk about how to empower them to be user advocates and demand high quality deliverables. So what does it mean to deliver a high quality product or service? I think this can be interpreted differently depending on the person and the organization. But to me, across companies, my definition and expectation is that we're delivering a delightful user experience. And I mentioned this phrase before, and you will continue to hear me say it throughout our conversation today. It's one way I measure the success and quality of our product. So this is not just asking the question, is this buggy, but taking it a step further and asking, would I enjoy this? If I didn't work for this company, in some cases, even if I did, what would I think to myself as I'm navigating this user experience? Do I find myself coming back to this app or using it as a point of reference when I'm talking about a great user interface? Is this intuitive? And if I worked in support, how easy would it be for me to walk a non-tech savvy user through the application? So the first thing I want to touch on today is advocacy. And for the sake of our conversation, there are two parts to advocacy. One is advocacy for our users, and the other is advocacy for self. Many times those two things can go together, but there are also instances where they're independent of each other. So let's start with advocacy for users. My top priority leading a quality organization and what I instill in my team is that we are user advocates. I think everyone here knows that we should be keeping our users in mind throughout the entire planning and development process, but that does not happen. And that's normal, right? Like not ideal, but normal. And I think this is where the two philosophies I mentioned earlier come into play, testing like a user and advocating for our users through testing. In order to deliver a delightful user experience, we have to use our product like our users do. Understanding not only happy path use cases and when the product is used as designed, but especially in the ways that we did not design or plan for. Validating the happy path and testing the negative path is important, right? Like, does it do what we said we wanted to do? Did it do what we built it to do? And like, yes, great, fine. But users never use the thing the way that we think they will or the way we want them to. And in this space lives our edge cases. This is where you not only find the limitations of the product as designed, but also the opportunity to champion in a really impactful way for your users. This space is where pushing for a delightful user experience exists and how we ensure we're keeping our users top of mind. A couple of things that can help here: building a relationship with your support team. Support interacts with users day in and day out. I am also probably biased towards support because that's how I started my tech career. But having worked in both support and engineering, yes, more support lovers, great. Working in both in support and engineering also means I see the correlation between the two and value the work and impact an open and collaborative relationship can have. The second thing is testing personas. These can generally be built from a combination of the data points I just mentioned from support and also from product requirements. Understanding who your core users are gives you insight into how they're using the app and can make sure you're building tests that explore that. I don't know how many of you are familiar with testing personas or the why behind it, so I want to dive into it really quick. So we're going to take a quick detour. Persona-based testing is essentially putting yourself in the user's shoes to determine use cases and scenarios that customers can and likely will experience. Creating personas can get pretty detailed, and the more specific, the better. You can think about them generally in three categories: folks who use the product as designed, folks who are not current users, but fall within your target audience, and then folks who are not customers and who are also not your target audience, so they will not be using your product as designed. When you think about the people who are using it as intended, these are your happy path users. Tests built around product requirements and acceptance criteria will generally cover this person. Folks who are not currently using the product, but are a part of your target audience, this is where you'll start to find some of your edge cases, right? Working to understand the limitations, focusing on the intricacies of major features or your mostly used features. And for the last category, think about someone who doesn't have an understanding of your product, nor do they understand best practices or common workflows. There's just another layer of edge cases. And obviously the personas you create should reflect the different ways of using the app and are not just limited to these three categories. Working with personas can help maintain focus on your target users and to ensure you're building something they'll use. It'll give you insight into the end user's point of view. And of course, being in quality is more than just looking for bugs. It's understanding the entire experience and assessing if it makes sense and what the risks are. And so back to user advocacy, the last one I'm going to mention here, and probably my favorite resource, is user interviews. One of my previous companies spoiled me something major with our research team. This team was built to collect all of the data around how folks were currently using the app, why people stopped using the app, and what people wanted our app to do. And they did walkthroughs of beta so we could also better understand actual user workflows versus what we thought made sense. Watching those recordings or sitting in the sessions live gave us so much context and information about our users. And it gives you the rest of the data you need for building testing personas. So I always encourage companies, if they don't have a user research team, to get one. And if they're not doing user interviews, to start.
And sorry to interrupt, Lexie, just Stage Mom over here. I think you have a timer that you might want to X out.
Wait, what?
Is there a little timer? Am I the only one? I think if you go to your screen share, there's just a little timer over.
Oh,
Sorry, end user here, don't mind me.
I don't even know what that is and where that came from. Thank you.
I love it. I love it. And great question, Eric. And we're going to get to that just while Lexie finish up her slides. That's a great question. Back to you, Lexie.
Okay, thank you. On the other side of the advocacy plane is self-advocacy. And I say these overlap because advocating for one can in turn help advocate for the other. Whether the intention is the same, the outcome generally benefits you and the user. I love that more companies are understanding the value of quality, bulking up their quality org, embedding them on teams, and finding other ways to ensure quality has a voice prior to delivering a feature. But as with most things, full buy-in can take time. So there are still some speed humps in the relationship between quality and engineering and product and quality. I personally am an optimist, so I don't believe it's intentional, right? Like the tension there. I think it's more about not understanding the needs of quality engineers or SDETs on cross-functional teams. Thus, information and resources aren't always delivered. And a quick clarification, SDET is software development engineer in test, and some places also call them test engineers. And so this is where self-advocacy comes in and teaching your team how to work with you. You have to advocate for completed designs, understanding the architecture, how this code interacts with other parts of the product. If you don't have product requirements or acceptance criteria from your cross-functional partners, ask for it. If there is something you do not understand, ask for clarification. Ask for what you need and do not stop until you get it. This is generally where most of my team ends up pulling me in. They've asked for something several times, and for whatever reason, they haven't gotten what they need. And one thing I don't accept as a leader is the like, I didn't know, I didn't have what I needed to do the thing. And that doesn't work for me because I make it very clear that self-advocacy is imperative to their success. And because if they don't communicate with me early enough, I couldn't do anything to step in and support them in getting what they need. Keeping that in mind, you know what you need better than any cross-functional teammate, and it's the responsibility of our QE to vocalize that, set the expectation, and then hold people accountable. It's also important to help cross-functional teams understand testing capacity each sprint, and that can be a specific effort for tickets, a feature overall, any tech debt that quality needs to validate. When engineers are working through how long a thing will take, quality should also be thinking about what does testing this look like? How long will it take? And what's the lift involved? So I oversaw a project recently where we did not have all of the information we needed and gravely underestimated the testing effort. We just didn't take enough time to ask all the right questions, get all the information up front, and devise a plan from there, and it bit us in the ass. But I do think it was a great opportunity for my team to see what I've been preaching and how that could have helped. And there she is. Hi, Bella. And of course, there are some parts of the story missing here and everything would not have gone seamlessly. But the takeaway here is that it's important to speak up about what you need and what you don't understand and what you don't have, because no one will give it to you if they don't know you need it. Okay, so we talked about advocacy. Let's talk about test cases, which I know people love so much. A bit more specifically, I want to talk about writing test cases early. We can't control or force our developers to write with quality in mind, but the best way to influence it is by having test cases written before development begins. I'm going to be very clear. I am not saying they need to be written in full. perfect with no iterations to come before development, because that is unrealistic. I am saying that we should open a dialogue between our cross-functional partners, the quality team, and leadership. And while it can be a heavy lift up front, I promise it helps the sprint go by smoother and the QEs feel less overwhelmed as tickets start progressing through the development cycle. So let's talk about test cases at a very basic level. A test case generally includes test scenarios. So what steps are you going to take to validate? Test data, the information you need to perform the test. A basic example of this is if you're testing login, the test data here would be your username and password. It's helpful to have everything you need in one place and not having to search for it when it comes time to execute. The third thing that test cases generally include are preconditions. So what do you know needs to be true or not true in order for this scenario to be validated? Your expected outcome and the actual outcome, and then your testing notes. Obviously, testing notes come after execution, but it still should be included in the end. So how does this help during development? The more information you have, the better equipped you are to make any decision. And this is no different. Writing your test cases early, having a plan, and thinking through all the ways users could and might use the app shares context with your engineers. I oversaw another project in the last few months, and the work for my QEs was piling up very quickly. And it got to a point where I was really concerned about our ability to get through everything and deliver the feature on time. So I had my QEs stop working on executing tests and completing tickets for 2 days. And in those 2 days, I asked them just to focus on writing test cases, and more specifically, writing their test steps with expected behavior. What this allowed for was less context switching when it came time to execute the test. Instead of having to pause and think about what part of the feature they were working on, the right test to execute for them, they could easily and quickly run through the test and get them moved over and ready to be merged. This also gave space and opportunity for asking for help. When it got closer to the end of the sprint and there was less development going on, the engineers, the product manager, or really anybody on your team could help QE execute those tests. The QEs that were embedded on the team did not have to do a ton of onboarding or bringing anyone up to speed. The information was already present in the test case. You pick what tickets make sense for someone else to validate, pass it over, and keep it moving. The questions I had them ask and encourage them to think about when the next project came along was, how early are you writing these test cases and test scenarios? Are you building high-level test cases or just focusing on the tickets in each sprint? And encourage them to find and focus on not only if it meets product requirements, but also thinking about the user experience. And the final thing I want to touch on today is automation. Don't manually test everything. You're human, and humans miss things, especially when you're running through the same workflows over and over again. You're going to run yourself ragged, and you don't have to. There's like the super cliche, work smarter, not harder. And that is where automation comes into play, right? I've worked in environments where your SDETs, test engineers, or whatever you call them, where you work in sprint with the rest of the team. This takes a pretty refined planning process for this to not only work, but to be effective and productive. If you're still in the early stages of like developing your agile process or still in the startup phase, this does not generally go well, but we'll talk about what both of these look like. So we'll talk about first what tests make sense to automate and what ones don't. So let's start with what's not a good candidate. So we've talked a good bit about testing like a user. So user usability tests are generally not a good candidate because these can be one-offs, high variations, and not the standard. And so that's a pretty expensive test to write. The same for tests that you're only going to run once. This feels pretty obvious as to why you wouldn't automate it. So we're going to move on. And the last one I want to call out is tests without a predictable outcome. The purpose of automating tests is to have a consistent and reliable test that shows the expected outcome and notifies you when that's not the case. If you're testing something that doesn't have a predictable outcome, this literally does not help you. So what should you automate? If there are a set of tests that you run against every release or every build, these make sense to be automated. This could be your regression testing, your smoke tests, your sanity tests, things like that. Another great candidate is performance and load testing, which are the unsung heroes of quality. So now that we've got a basic understanding of what we should and should not automate, let's talk about when. So working in sprint, this is helpful because it frees up your quality engineers. They aren't having to run regression or the scenarios in the test cases. And because they're written early, you can automate those earlier in the sprint, and that gives space and opportunity for more exploratory testing and for more user-based testing. Again, disclaimer, I have only seen this successful when teams and organizations that are a bit more mature in their planning and development process. That's generally because the designs don't change, the functionality doesn't change, and there's a high likelihood that what's been planned is what comes to fruition. Now, for organizations that are still working out the kinks in their agile journey, because we all know it's a journey to get there, and are still fleshing out process and standardization around design and development, writing your automation early is going to drive your SDETs insane. Things are going to constantly change, the functionality is going to change, and the design is likely to change. And they're left feeling like their time has been wasted, and nobody wants to feel like that. What I've seen work well here is working a sprint or two behind. And I know that seems unhelpful, but what you'll find is that as you continue iterating on your feature and continue building your test suite, your automated tests will likely overlap in coverage. So writing smart automated tests helps ensure that that happens.
And Lexie, if I may as well, I want to make, how are you in my head? Yes.
I'm done.
And she said exactly a 20. Oh my God.
Just that good.
She is that good.
You know.
Can we get a round of applause? Can we get a round of applause? Yes. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And like I said, y'all, if you loved anything about this amazing, amazing session, put some love on social media. You can see it right here, and I dropped LinkedIn as well. I want to make sure though, because I know some people have a hard stop, and I want to say thank y'all for coming today. I love this session, but we did have 2 quick questions here. Before I go into the questions, I know some of you have to jump off at the time. I want to say congratulations to Will, our raffle prize winner. Yes, Will, I know. You just won some swag from Provar. It's a lovely t-shirt with a few other little goodies that has been trending on Twitter. So I will be sending you a personalized link via LinkedIn. So congratulations. Yes. I know. It's the least we can do, the bare minimum, really. I want to have you stop sharing if that's okay, Lexie.
Yes.
And I love that. And thank you again, Will. You're amazing. I want to go back to 2 quick questions that we had from our amazing leaders here. The first one was from Eric. Eric asks, what are some, and Eric, you can also just ask live if you want, friend.
Yeah, no worries there. No, I was just wondering what kind of tips or what are some things that you have found some success in trying to move organizations' mindsets to quality, because where I'm at, I'm really trying to get quality at the forefront of, even project initiation. Like if you're ideating on something, quality needs to be right there built into it. So what are some things that you've done that have been successful?
Yeah, I think product folks don't understand why, right? Don't understand why quality needs to be there so early. And so where I have found success is sitting down and just like having a conversation around, listen, when we wait, we're delaying our release, right? And that is a product manager's worst nightmare, is that like, we're not going to get out on time. And so the reason that happens is because we did not think about quality in the beginning. And so once we're like further into the development cycle, we're finding all of these issues, which then we have to go back and reiterate, and right, it's like taking so much longer. So when you bring us in earlier, we can prevent that, right? Like we can think further down the line, things that we need to think about, to consider, that we need to build with in mind. And when that happens, right, like we can get our product out generally on time. Don't tell them generally, just tell them we will get it out on time. And so that generally helps them, right, like understand like, oh shit, yeah, I don't want, to have to tell my boss that we're going to delay because of this thing that I didn't think about in the beginning. And that generally helps get them on board.
So what we're hearing is fear. Fear is a powerful motivator.
I mean, I am not above intimidation. Okay. I'm not. I'm not.
Oh, you heard it here first. You heard it here first. No, I love that question, Eric. I think that's really, really important. I think one of the other things, just to echo that as well, is I love that idea around, delaying and release. And the other thing I think about too a lot is how are you creating a framework that works for you? I've seen leaders in the past setting up COEs, right? They talk about trust, flexibility, and visibility and how that works for their cross-functional teams. And so thinking about what are your top 3 values that you're using to help shift your quality conversations left, right? And then reiterating that. Everyone has a different framework, but it was a leader that I stage mommed a long time ago. And I just love that. Trust, visibility, flexibility. That's how they operate. So whatever framework works for you, I just wanted to chime in. But fear, yes, ma'am. Um, Eric, did you want to add anything else to that?
Oh, that's good. Those are all good things. I guess I should share one of my commercials that I did in the past life to help bring that fear to folks. So it was kind of a office linebacker thing. So tackling people around the office was really good. So maybe
Yeah, do what works for you.
Please do, Eric, and you can drop that in the meetup discussion if you want, because I would love for everyone to watch that, and hopefully without any context. I want to jump to Jasper's question. Jasper, you had a great question.
Yeah. So Lexie, in your context, is there a difference between who is paying for the service and who's using the service?
Oh, that's a good question. Where I'm at right now, no. Because we are a subscription-based service, those are one and the same. But when I worked at MailChimp, right, that was not the same because we obviously had free users and we also had people who were using paying for our features, right? So when I think about people who are not paying but are using, they generally don't have access to support, right? And so they're trying to figure things out on their own. And I think in those cases, it's incredibly important to be more intentional about how intuitive your app is. And that's where, right, when we're advocating for our users and saying, right, okay, we built this, so we understand this. There are users who are going to come in to support and get clarification on this. But for the people who don't, we don't want to lose them. And in order to not lose them, we have to make sure what we're doing makes sense. And I think that's sort of how you can spin that narrative. Everyone cares about, right? How do we convert free users to paid users, right? And making sure that they like the product as is when they're using it for free is how you get them to convert to a paid user. And most businesses, right, just care about the bottom line. And so when you're appealing to that is generally how you can have some influence in that space.
Right.
Okay.
Was that an okay? Did you have a follow-up?
Right. Yeah. I saw you.
My context is enterprise applications. So there's someone else paying for a company license of MailChimp, but a whole other set is using it. So
I see.
So we need to, but having then the user advocacy and figuring out is I think as a good takeaway from this session.
Yeah, I think that's important too. And I think the other thing too, and I love that you touched on that as well, Lexie, we're getting to the minute here. I really want more organizations or anyone who's watching this. I know not every company has a community team function or even a community manager, but they are vital, y'all. But you don't have to have a community manager to get more of that user advocacy going. I've seen people start a Slack channel or Discord, whatever you name it. Your customers and users will forgive some of your bugs, not all of them, if they feel like they are being heard and bringing your product leaders in to see that. I've seen quality leaders have to do that before because their company wouldn't get budget for a community manager. And so just part of it knowing is that there is infrastructure out there for you that you can take on yourself as QA leaders. And that'll really set you apart as well because product ain't doing it. Your developers ain't doing it. So come through QA. But with that said, I want to say, just because we are at the minute, I want to say thank you, Lexie. You are just a godsend. We appreciate you. I love that we got, oh yes, we mean it. We mean it. Tara was like, she's brilliant. And as well, yeah, it's true. And I want to say it was lovely to meet your kitty as well. And so thank you so much. Yes, everyone say goodbye with this cat. Oh, yes. We love love that. We love that. But I
Thanks,
want to
y'all. This was fun.
was fun. And so please stay connected, y'all. We're going to be having more of these events. We have one coming up in December. We've been the worst community organizers, Tara and I, but here we are. I love these sessions. Shh, don't tell them. We are going to have some other upcoming exciting sessions coming soon. We can't say out just yet because we're finalizing a panel, but stay tuned for a topic we are really excited about. It's near and dear to our hearts. Lexie, we adore you. Will, congratulations. And remember, again, anyone who's watching this recording, check out University of Provar for free resources from your friends here at Provar. With that said, ta-ta. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.